Welcome to our session. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Annalia Morrow, and I am with AVAP. I'm here with my wonderful colleague, Sarah Persinger, who I will introduce in just a moment. My role has been to work with Miami University of Ohio for the last couple of years, with a couple more to go, and we're going to talk about that. It has been my pleasure to serve on their steering committee, their executive sponsor, and work with their executive team. But my background is all in higher education, many decades. Anyone who's heard me speak, I stopped counting at 29 years of higher education experience. As a side note, it is amazing to see the number of people who are here supporting higher education and the Workday system. I was a user and one of the first to go live with Workday Student many years ago, part of the Design Partner Program at the very first meeting, and so it's been incredible to see the growth of the Workday product over those years. I'd like to introduce Sarah Persinger, my colleague from Miami University of Ohio, who has been our partner throughout this journey, and we are so excited to celebrate the successes that Miami University has experienced over the last couple of years. So Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role?
All right, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm going to get a show of hands real quick. Is everybody here from higher ed? Or maybe the people that aren't from higher ed? Okay, all right, that's okay, you're still allowed, we're good. Also, a side note, the dancing llamas are late, so they may come in later, but it's just gonna be us up on stage for now, so thank you.
It is Vegas, isn't it supposed to be showgirls, not llamas?
Well, you know, I figured, yeah, llamas would be good. So I was the change management lead on our project, and so I guess just wanted to say that about myself.
I think we'd also have a lot of Miami University.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I would like to say, all of my Miami colleagues, stand, please. I want this group to be able to see you. Anybody that's with, yes. These are folks that
Big
you can ask questions of, for sure.
Yes.
They either were on the project team or using the product after we've gone live. And they will have great answers for you. So from functional to technical to project leadership. So definitely make sure that you catch up with them. And we should also say, if we run out of time, meet us at the AVAP booth. We'll be there after the session so that you can ask us more questions.
Yeah. All right, so before we get into some questions, Sarah, let's talk a little bit about, of course, Safe Harbor. We will not be doing anything forward statements, but you're very familiar with this statement, other than talking about student, but everything you've done is in production, so we're very excited for that. Before we jump into some specific questions, we'll be talking about the scope of the Miami project, their amazing success metrics that they're realizing in just the first few months of being live. Talk about how much transformation they have experienced throughout this project and now that they are in production. And finally, their lessons learned, both things that they have learned and are taking into their student project and things that they would offer for you to think about as you look at Workday. So before we talk about some specifics and the scope, why don't you give an overview of the project and a little bit about Miami University.
Absolutely. All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. So we went live July 1st. Big celebration, right? I mean, it was a massive undertaking. 18 months of work, over 150 people on the project. Out of everything that we did, we put in on the platform side of the house, talent, HCM, compensation, advanced compensation. So many of our products on the finance and HR side. We've got strategic sourcing, we've got expenses, we've got procure to pay, we've got absence, time tracking. So pretty much we went with everything all at once. We did learning, we did talent, we did grants. We're going to do adaptive, that's coming up next. We had to get our foundation data model. So for anybody that knows FDM, we had to get that set. We're live now 2 months. Hopefully our FDM is set in stone. We're going to start our adaptive project. So that's coming up next. We have Extend. We're trying not to use it. As much as possible. We're wanting to stay Workday 1 and nothing extra, but we know that it's there. And then again, we used some of the materials from the adoption kit and the subscription library, so we got pretty much everything. And I do want to say thanks to our project team for investing in change management, because that absolutely helped having a dedicated change management lead on the project.
And you all have kicked off Student.
We have kicked off Student.
We'll talk a little bit about that project as well. It's been exciting. So now that you're live, July 1st, What are some of the biggest benefits you've seen in just the first few months of being live on Workday?
All right, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and leave this slide up here for you, but our biggest benefit since go live has been complete, total employee engagement. Now, with employee engagement, they were so looking forward to getting into the system. They rushed and rushed and rushed, and they wanted to get in the system. With that came some complaints. It looks different. Why am I doing this? What's the, I don't understand some of these things. I will ask you also to imagine when you're live in a system and you see the words test in a large blue banner with red and yellow and blue and green. You would not expect to try to put in a live transaction. So I'm giving you an early lessons learned. We had that. We had somebody send a complaint into us because their delegation didn't happen when they thought it should, and so they sent me a screenshot. And I said, oh, okay, so I can see the test banner. You're not in our production system. So early heads up, early lessons learned. Just know that you've got users excited to get into the system, but if you let them into your test system too early and they don't know that they're going to disconnect, then they need to, to get back into the production. So total employee engagement was our biggest benefit there.
What are some of the really intentional measures that Miami planned for that you took to keep teams motivated? This is a long project.
It's a very long project. So, and Ben will appreciate this in the front row. So on our weekly Zoom sessions, any meeting that I was in, I tried to do a different Zoom background to account for the day or the week or the celebration or the holiday. So I kept them guessing which one was going to come next. We did a 24 on 24 on January 24th in 2024, so I'm a big numbers person. And we had a celebration, we had events, we had stress, we had 24 stations. They could, blow balloons up and dance around. Every one of our on-site meetings with the consultants, I brought food. I made sure we had snacks, we had everything. I had one of the ladies on the team tell me that I must have been an Italian grandmother in an earlier life because I kept trying to feed everybody. Made soup for the group. But it was just things like that to kind of get them through. We had some other folks that weren't on the change management team that brought cookies and just tried to make life easier for those on the project because it is completely stressful when you're in that go live and building stage.
I think Sarah glossed over that because she really loved on the folks who were working on the project, loved on the people who were coming in to test. So it was really wonderful to see. Talk about some of the drivers for transformation and why Miami chose Workday.
Okay, yeah. So in basic, it was try to get to the power of one, to Workday. We had 17 systems on the financial and HR side that we knew we were going to fold into the functionality of Workday, so that was great. We're going to make sure that we had an RFP to see should we stay on our current ERP. So I'm going to get a show of hands real quick. Who is on Banner now? Okay, so our mantra was ABB, anything but Banner, and so we had the RFP. Sorry, I hope there's no Banner. We had the RFP to say, are we going to stay Banner, or are we going to go somewhere else? We ended up with a result that said go somewhere else, and Workday was the clear winner from that RFP.
Talk a little bit about the relationship between Miami and AVAP. We've worked together for many years, still have many years ahead of us, and then maybe also how it relates to change management, but not specifically.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so again, we're with these people constantly, meetings, hours and hours and hours and days and weeks of meetings. So you have to make sure that the consulting firm that you're with, if you choose to go that route, is a good fit for you. We love our besties. We love our AVAP counterparts. They have the two in the box. So basically it's one of us on Miami, we've got one of us at AVAP, and then others that were on the project team. So you have to make sure that that's a good fit for you. And so we basically became very close throughout the working of the project. You have to, though, address, if you've got issues with a consultant or a resource, you have to address it early so it doesn't become that thorn or that sand that's going to really derail things. So you have to make some hard decisions sometimes, too.
So it's real open communication.
Absolutely.
Lots of dialogue. Nothing is off the table, right?
Absolutely.
Have to have some of those conversations. Let's talk about some of those lessons learned. And I'm really interested in what surprised you the most.
Okay. All right, so basically I'm going to just kind of talk about some of those. I do have my payroll lead in the house, and so I'm going to say to her, I think that some of the payroll audits that we used to do manually that decreased dramatically by virtue of the system, so give us a big, yes, that's a good one. All right. So that was one of the lessons learned, or one of the success items that we had. We had some things that we did completely within the system that were in peripheral systems, so job enrichment programs. We did mobile access for time tracking. Some of our spend, I do have my spend manager here, so she's in the house as well. We had a lot of manual processes, yes. Having everything in the same system, again, a win for us. We were on Chrome River with Banner. We're now obviously doing our expenses within Workday. I think that's, let's see. Making sure that we hit all of those. I do want to say that so my banking guy, yes, you're in the house too. So all of our automated processes on the banking, we absolutely had some successes there. So some really great wins. And this is probably maybe half of the wins that we had with the project.
All right, I want to go to some of the lessons learned and talk to me about what surprised you most. Our slides were out of order, so it's okay. We ran.
Yeah, absolutely. You want me to hit over to the next one? All right, we'll get to our lessons learned. We're going to leave that there for just a second, but basically, one of the lessons that we learned, are we ready for this, right? We had to make sure that we were going to be engaged fully in the project. We had to have the right mindset. That was one of those things that came out of it. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of weekends if you don't have dedicated resources, so I'm going to leave this up here for just a second.
What does that mean, the right mindset? Talk a little bit more about that.
Are we ready to ask why we do this thing that we do? Is it a system limitation? Is it a process that must continue? Is it something that was developed by somebody else? And we do have these things from the 1990s, even before, that carried over into our banner system, that carried over. No, we didn't carry it into Workday. We said, no, we're not going to bring it into Workday. We're going to use best practices for Workday. We're going to try to not customize anything. So yeah, that was the right mindset. You have to be willing to trash the excess baggage. No sacred cows. You have to be able to pull them out and remove them from your processes.
So that because we've always done it that way is not what you want to do, right?
Absolutely. That is the worst answer. I wish we could have had a bell or a gong or something that when somebody said, because we do this. No, we're not going to do that. So yes, absolutely.
So that's good tip. They just need a bell.
Yes, for sure.
So what questions should they ask of their internal organization, of themselves, as they're thinking about Workday and thinking about choosing a partner?
Absolutely. So I mentioned before about the good fit. You've got to make sure that of those consulting firms, if you interview any of them, know the team that you might be assigned so that you can gauge if they're going to be a good fit for your organization. You have to make sure that that's one of your priorities. You have to be able to, again, kind of ask that question, are we really prepared to devote the time to this? Do you have, my first one up there is this, the depth of coverage, second one up there, depth of coverage for your leads and your sub-leads, just to make sure that they are not trying to do their day job plus their secondary job plus this thing called Workday. It is intense and involved, and you've got to be able to devote the time to it. And so thankfully we had, out of the 150 people on the project, we had some really great strength of leadership in the leads and the sub-leads. We did not have enough depth of coverage, and there were many times we had tearful conversations. We had people on the brink of, it's just not working for me. Okay, wait, calm down. What can we do to help? And so that goes back to the partner, to the project manager, to the consulting team to say, what can we do to leave this burden from you? Can we move it somewhere else? Can we take a roadblock and knock it down?
So you talked a little bit about leadership, and from my vantage point, the leadership and the investment that Miami had in regular leadership engagement was phenomenal, because we talk about how important that is, but it was not just monthly steering committee engagement. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So we had our CFO, and we know that the project lead for the finance side, he said over and over and over again, my CFO has my back. If I make a decision, he's going to back me. He's not going to question me. If I say we're not going to carry a process into Workday, he's going to back me. So that, like support, I have your back, that is critical and key. We have other of our leadership team that went out and did presentations to the Miami Board of Trustees just to let them know how the project was going. And again, kind of always having that voice of, yes, this is the project, we're moving ahead, it's going to be a success, and we're making sure that we put the resources and the efforts into it.
And you have change management up here, but you didn't talk a little bit. I want you to talk a little bit about some of the specifics that you did, because you really invested time, energy, and so much thought into how you wanted to lead change on the campus.
Absolutely. So again, we're paying it forward to those that have, they're going to come after us. I took a couple of looks at other websites, other schools. I searched Google, I searched, university, Workday, just to try to find some examples. Communication was key. We did communication in a couple different ways. We had a website, we kept the website updated. We had different newsletters that we put out the door to let people know the project specifics, but then also some of the things that they could expect to see. We held training sessions. Once we had a test system up and available, a number of training sessions. My entire May is a blur because it was all training sessions. I think it was about maybe 120 sessions of just basic navigation with over 1,200 of our employees that have come to them. We recorded them, we had them available for later. We used our Workday Learning. I didn't think I'd mention that. We used our own Workday Learning to host some of these sessions after they were recorded so that we could bring it to the people that needed to use the system. And then we're going to kind of continually try to refresh that message and make sure that they understand how best to use the system, the resources, the community, and some of the training materials.
So that's great, using Workday Learning that lets them learn how to use the system and they don't even realize it.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah?
So in change management, it's the people side of change. You have to make them comfortable with the system. We also had to be careful not to say to so many of them to have a voice in, I don't really like how you built that and I want you to change it, because we did have some of that. But we had some really good examples of things that the project team missed in all of the discussions, and then we had to take care of those at the end. And we're still fighting a couple of those battles with some of our peripheral activities, student organizations in the system, some things like that were just the one-offs. So I'm sure many of you have those same kind of things. But it's just the change in general and taking care of the people going through the change, both internally on the project team and externally across your campuses.
You all have put so much thought into how you deployed the platform things, and now you're moving into student. How are you leveraging these lessons learned to have a strong start? I know you've had your kickoff, you're in plan stage. How have you leveraged these lessons to be ready for student?
Absolutely. We used so many of the training materials that we had available. I mentioned the adoption kit, the subscription libraries. I hosted a number of sessions for the student team so that they could see all of those recordings without having to have a specific learner account. So we did some things to streamline for them. We have continuity in project leadership. We have our project manager who was platform is going to continue through student. On the AVAP side, the same thing. We have them together all the way through the 3 years of our entire implementation. Continuity of being able to be a SME for me on the student side of the project as I drop off and stay with the platform team. So those kind of things really helped in having the going forward and the smoothness. We haven't had much turnover in the project, and that's also a bonus. So
yeah.
Very helpful.
Right. So I heard themes of continuity, executive engagement, communication, having some fun.
Yes, indeed.
Any other things that stand out to you as lessons learned that would be really important?
I don't think so. I think that's covering it.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's talk about transformation, and we want to open it up for some questions.
Sure.
What is your number one tip for a leader who is about to embark on the Workday journey, and what would you say to them?
Be ready. Be ready for some change. Be ready for some stress, but be ready to back your team. So as a leader looking at somebody going forward, just be ready to support them.
Yeah. What about if they experience, I know that you did, a little bit of pushback? Mm-hmm. How do you combat that and bring people along on that journey with you?
You just have to figure out the other thing that's going to get them going. You kind of have to sidestep, you have to move around, you have to figure something out. You can brainstorm some solutions, you can work with others on the team. I did have one thing that I forgot to mention. So when we were talking about some of the things that helped us with change management, we had a group of change champions. We had 40 people across the university that were able to help us with some of our training materials. They were able to help us with looking at the system. They had some behind the scenes sneak peeks at the system. And so they were that voice then into the departments across the campus to help us get our message out, but then also to kind of give their message back to us if there were things that we needed to be in front of. So I think that was also one of the things I wanted to make sure to bring out.
Wonderful. We have a wonderful group of Miami University colleagues with us, and I want to pick on you, Kent, not pick on you, but I want to call on you. So if you would stand up, because Kent was our project manager and did a wonderful job keeping us together. So thank you. If you would go to the microphone, I actually have a question for you, because we're just going to start questions with you, because I think that those in attendance, organizing a project like this can be daunting, and so I think that they would really be interested interested in hearing from you what you felt, in addition to what Sarah has shared for organizational change management, that project management and leadership side, what you would suggest.
Yeah, a couple of pieces, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Sarah also said. That buy-in at the very top level is essential. I mean, we had our CFO from day one, and the entire executive team was Workday first. That was the message: is we're going to do this in Workday if at all possible, and that really helped eliminate a lot of those barriers. The other thing too, and Sarah also alluded to this, is the support of the people on the team and the delegation and authority to those people on the team to make decisions. If you're going to try, to have 50 people review every single decision, you're never going to get completed. You've got to empower the people on the team to make those decisions, in order to keep the project on track.